All right, Robert, you ready to get started?
Ready? Yep.
Excellent. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Ted Harris. I am the Director of Marketing and Membership for the Pennsylvania Petroleum Association. I would like to welcome you to our webinar this morning. This is a part of our monthly webinar series. It happens the first Tuesday of each month at 9 a.m. And each month we feature an associate member with a topic that's both timely and informative. And the goal of this is to essentially allow give a pathway for our associate members to provide some really meaningful information to our membership. I know we also have a few Deswin clients from other parts of the country on the webinar this morning, and I would like to welcome you as well. Before I introduce Robert, I would like to encourage anyone to ask questions during this presentation using the question feature on GoToWebinar. And what we'll do once the webinar once Robert's presentation is done, we will go back and I will ask Robert the questions that came in, and he will provide feedback on those questions. And if it's something that he can't answer directly today or this morning, we'll make sure that we connected with Robert after the fact, and he can hopefully provide you with an answer. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Robert Kulowick, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Deswin Energy Systems. Robert, thank you for doing this morning, and I'll pass it off to you.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ted. I appreciate it, and thanks for the opportunity to make this presentation to the group here. I know many of you from our time as being working with you as customers, and I appreciate the fact that you've taken the time this morning to come listen to this presentation. And for those of you who are not customers yet, we're happy to talk to you too, and hopefully one day you'll be a customer. This is a tough thing for me, having a muted audience. I'm really not used to it, so if I don't get that positive feedback when I tell my jokes, so this is a little tough for me, but I'm sure we'll get through it. What we want to talk about today in general is the Deswin system, and Christopher Alesevich has joined me. He is our lead market developer. He'll be making some comments on occasion. So, and as Ted said, add up your questions, and we'll try to answer them as best as we can when we get to the end. So our presentation goals, which for some reason looks like an empty slide.
Good morning, everybody. This is Chris. Robert, if you click, I believe you'll be able to proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so our presentation goals are, that's a good thing Chris is here, for sure. So we're going to talk about our Deswin portal in the context of a full service dealer. And the Deswin portal itself is a configurable portal, so it can support fuel dealers who are will call only sites, for example, or people who want to make payments only. But the portal is designed in its original conception for full service dealers. So as we go through the slides today, and you see all the different screens that are available in the Deswin portal, you'll see that it's designed for full service companies providing not only fuel but service to their dealers, to their customers rather. And we'll discuss that in detail as we go through the slides. The Deswin system is a portal, a customer-facing portal is a system that gets data from your back-end system somehow. So either in some way the back-end system, whether it's, I know many of you are Cargus customers, some of you might be ads customers, the portal gets data from the back-end system, and it can get that data in a couple of different ways, but basically file transfers are set up between the back-end system and the Destwin portal, and then the portal gets populated with that data. And in addition, inside the portal, you can do various things like pay your bills, order fuel, enroll in programs, and that data that we take in on our side can then be passed back through to the back-end system. So it's an interactive interface between the customer portal website and the back-end system. One of the things that allows you to do then is customers have the ability to provide self-service for themselves, so they don't have to necessarily pick up the phone to call you to enroll in a program or to pay a bill or to see their recent transaction history. Instead, they can go online, log into the portal through your website, and find that information for themselves or take those actions for themselves. And they can do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the website and the web is online and available all the time. Today, unlike when we first started, gosh, we started building portals back in 2007 was the first fuel dealer portal that we built, and we built that for Gary Sippin, who was one of the founders of Destwin. And Gary had an idea, and we had the technology, so that's how Destwin sort of got started. And when we first started, people didn't have iPhones, and tablets were not as popular as they are today. So the world has changed quite a bit, even in the last 10 years from when we first started building portals. And today, it's important to be able to provide a good user experience for your customers, not only on a computer screen like we're looking at here in this slide presentation, although some of you might be on tablets, even some of you might be on phones. So it's important today to be able to support all those different platforms, and you can do that with the Destwin portal and system. There are one of the benefits you will get out of the Destwin system and a customer-facing web portal is the interface with the back-end system and the ability to streamline your processes should provide efficiencies in how you do things. For example, again, since the customer can enter their own fuel orders as an example, those orders can be sent right to the back-end system automatically to generate delivery tickets. If you're using a new customer application that's built into the Destwin system, that data can be input by the customer, and simplifying that overall process to reduce the load that you have on your own staff to process applications. If you're using the online contracting system, that's a great way to save and reduce the workload for your CSRs, because the customers can go in, pick their own contract, generate that contract for themselves, pay for it if payment is required, and that contract can go directly into your back-end system and create the records in there without any intervention or need for your CSRs to work on that process. The whole process from start to finish can be set up and automated so that the customers are handling it all by themselves. We'll talk a little bit towards the end of this presentation about price protection and hedging. Built into the Destwin system is a very robust tool called ARM, Advanced Risk Management. And what happens in ARM is data is aggregate, or your contract data, whether it is imported from your back-end system or contracts that are created directly in Destwin are all aggregated in the ARM system, and there you know your commitments then to your customers based on what's been contracted, so you can make better hedging decisions and purchase decisions for how to manage deliveries or purchases of your fuel over the life of your customer contracts. And lastly, we'll talk about data profile marketing, which is a very important and key capability that's built into the Destwin system. What you can do in the Destwin system, because we have data from the back-end system and because we therefore know account attributes, we understand what your customers are doing in the port. Well, we understand what your customers do. We understand how they use fuel. We understand what fuels they use. We understand and know whether they're on automatic delivery or not. We know whether they're enrolled in paperless billing or not. We know characteristics about your customers. Because we know that, we can create targeted messages for your customers. So your customers who are on automatic delivery don't need to see a message about the benefits in enrolling in automatic delivery. They can see a different type of message. And the ones who are on automatic delivery, you can create a message targeted for them to encourage them and promote to them the benefits of automatic delivery. So data profile marketing is a very important function or feature that's built into the Destwin system that we'll talk a little bit more about as we go through the slides, and you'll get to see some examples. Okay, so when a customer logs in to the portal, this is the typical landing page that they would see. It's what we call the account summary page, and it's meant to show a basic snapshot of information that might be the most important to the customer, things that they need to know, like, do they owe you any money? It's always good to let them know that. And they have a quick menu link over here to get to some of the things that they think would be the most, well, the things that would be the most popular things that they might want to get to. If you have tank monitors on your system, we can actually display a tank gauge. Given the data from the back-end system, we'll let the customer know approximately how much fuel they have in their tank. We can also do this graphical representation based on certain other fields that we might get from the back-end system, but in those cases, this would just be an estimate of how much fuel is actually in the tank and not necessarily a reading from the tank gauge. This is a feature we've added fairly recently. Some of you guys don't have it, but we could talk about it and potentially get it added to your portals. Up here is one of those things that we were talking about. That's an actual marketing message. So where we are, in this case, promoting the opportunity for this particular customer to enroll in auto bill pay. This is another blocked out area here where again, a marketing message where this is a general marketing message that's a welcome, but it's linked to a form that the customer can then click on and give you guys some feedback. So this is another example of a marketing message. This is a marketing message, and this is basic data from the back-end system. So on the transactions page, what we're looking at is this would be one of the popular pages in the portal. Customer, just wants to go in and check their account information. This page gives, rather their recent transaction history. This gives the customer an opportunity to do that without having to pick up the phone and call you. Saves time for them. They could do it at their convenience at 8 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever, and it saves time for you. You don't have to answer those questions. Down here again is another marketing message. So it's just another opportunity to promote something to the customer that taking advantage of the fact that we know that this particular customer is not enrolled in e-statements. So you can take the opportunity in this area to give the customer that boost to go ahead and if they're visiting this transactions page, that's a good place to put this type of message. Another transaction type page that we break out separately is the deliveries. So customers might be interested in just seeing their deliveries. If customers have multiple tank locations, they would be able to see those different tank locations on this page. One of the things that the portal does is you can have multiple accounts as well. A customer, when they register for online access in the portal, they can link multiple accounts to those registered login credentials. We call that a membership. So when a customer creates a membership, if they have multiple accounts, they can link all those accounts to that single membership so that when they do log into the portal, they'll have a drop down here that shows them all their accounts. They can select them and toggle through them and not have to log out and log back in to access all their different accounts. This is a relatively, well, it's a page we've had for a little while, and it depends on it does depend a bit on your back-end system. We don't necessarily have all the information we need in all cases to be able to put up this particular page, but this page is a summary of what a budget customer would see if they were on people who are on budgets. If the customer wasn't a budget customer, you could present them with a marketing message on this page to explain why it might be good to become a budget customer. You can explain the benefits of being a budget customer so they could potentially become a budget customer. So it's one of those pages that can be used either to show the customer the information that they already have, or again, promote the benefits of why they should potentially become a budget customer. For customers who are enrolled in a price plan, this particular page is getting data from the back-end system, and it's showing them the status of their current price plan. Again, just like with the budget plans, if they are not on a price plan, you could insert a message that would promote the benefits of being on a price plan, and you could give them a link to the price protection page where they could enroll in a program if you have that module in your portal. Loyalty points is one of the standard features of Destwin, and it's a great a lot of our customers do take advantage of the loyalty points functions that are built into Destwin, but not everybody does. It's a decision you have to make there's a business decision involved with implementing a loyalty points program. But with the loyalty points system, you can manage this entire system directly within Destwin. Typically, we would set up certain rules for you that determine how loyalty points are accumulated. We'd work with you to figure out how you wanted points to be accumulated. And then you also have the ability within the administrative pages of the portal to set up the redemption items, the things that customers can redeem their points for. And when you set up the redemption items is when you really determine the value of your loyalty points. Loyalty points themselves are just an arbitrary accumulation of points. You could get 1 point per day for being on automatic delivery, for example, or you could get 100 points per day for being on automatic delivery. And it's when you set up your redemption items that says how many points does it take to redeem an item that you determine the value of your points. And you can do various things with loyalty redemption items. You could let customers redeem things that you sell. You can let customers redeem items with third-party merchants if you want to take the time to set up deals with third-party merchants that would allow customers to redeem their points with them for dinner, for example. And you can do charitable contributions, which are very popular as well. With the charitable contributions, the customer would redeem them, and then you guys would make the donation. You guys would get the additional benefit of the tax benefit from making the donation. The order fuel page is a very popular page within the system, and this allows will call customers to place orders for fuel. And this pricing can come directly from the back-end system, or you can set up the prices directly within Destwin. We know information about the customer. We know, for example, their tank capacity, so we can present that information to them. They typically would have an option to either do a fill or specify the number of gallons that they want to order. You can control minimum order amounts within the order fuel system. You can control payment options to customers within the will call system. So based on the credit codes that we get from your back-end system, we can let customers bill their account if you want to allow them to do that, or we can not present that option to them, and the only option they would have then would be to pay either by credit card or by e-check if e-check's enabled for you within your system. There's also coupon options that are built into the will call system. So if you want to create coupon codes and let customers get a certain amount off on a given order, in the administrative portal, there's a whole coupon management piece where you can set up your coupons. Coupons can be one-time use, they could be multiple use coupons, and they can have expiration dates. The payment page is the most popular thing that people do in the portal. When all of our fuel dealers go live for the first time, the most popular thing people do is make payments. Within the Destwin portal, you can certainly we support credit cards and e-checks. There are multiple ways to do e-checks. We also built into the payment pages a roundup function, and with the roundup function, it works. If you ever paid an electric bill, for example, you might be familiar with roundup. What it lets the customer do is check a box and round up their payment to the nearest. In our system, we actually allow for rounding up to different amounts. You can round up to the nearest dollar. You could round up to the nearest $5 or $10, for example. And so if your customer owes you $100.20, if you round up to the nearest dollar, that would round up to 101, and the system would take that 80 cents and allocate it as a charitable contribution, which then you guys would again donate. Service plans. This is a page that's built into the system. You guys can manage it through the administrative portal. You would set up your different service plans, and customers could go in there, and then by clicking on these buttons, they could, and submitting that, it would generate a form. It would generate an email notification to you guys and log the entry, so that you could follow up with them and sell them their service plan. This particular page does not function as a shopping cart where it would actually enroll the customer in the plan. It's really a lead generating form for service plans. We get into the price protection page. So this is the online contracting portion of the Destwin portal. It's a very robust system. For those of you who have it and have used it, you know it takes a little bit of time to set up, but it is a fully it's a complete system from start to finish, where when you set up your different programs, customers can go ahead and proceed with actually generating an online contract. You can also do what we call CSR assisted contracts. So if you book a contract if a CSR generates a contract through the CSR portal, that contract can then be delivered to the customer for their approval in one of two ways. It can either be emailed to them as a PDF file or printed and postal mailed to them as a PDF file, where the customer would sign it and return it to you. Or we can actually do an online version of that, where instead of sending them the contract, we send them an email with a link that they have to click on to then approve and complete the process of entering the contract. We have a tool within the system to do a bit of a budget calculation for customers if they, and this is a tool we've worked on for many years. But what the budget calculator is designed to do is again, getting data from the back end system, we know what product they have. We know what contracts, based on our contract setup we were looking at in the prior screen, we know what contracts they're eligible for, and they can use this screen to, or this tool to calculate what would be their expected monthly budget payment if they were to enroll in the budget. Paperless billing is one of the standard Destin system forms. And what this is simply doing is providing the customer an opportunity to let you know that they are interested in enrolling in paperless billing. This would generate an email to a designated email address that you guys would provide to us, and is manageable within the admin portal. And it would also write a record to a paperless enrollment log, so you can keep track of them and follow up if needed. Online documents is very popular. It recently become more popular. When we first started the portal back 10 years ago or so, we didn't really do online documents at that time. But obviously, there's great benefits to doing online documents. It can save you the postal mail of having to print and send mail documents to your customers on a recurring basis. Instead, you could email those documents to the customers, or provide them with a link to go in to your portal, visit the documents page, and download them directly from there. And they could pay the bill directly from there as well. So this is a great way to save money in terms of postal mail and time. This is a sample of a email that would go out to the customer if they were enrolled in paperless billing. So they would get their EDOC. When the EDOC was generated within the system, this email would automatically go out to that customer. They could click on the link to go in and pay their bill. They'd be able to view that document that we saw on the previous slide online. And again, I think EDOCs are very popular and a great way to reduce your costs. This is the form that would enroll a customer in auto. Well, auto bill pay is different than EDOCs. So auto bill pay is the ability for your customers to enroll in a program where they would give you either their credit card or their e-check bank account information, assuming you had e-checks enabled. And with auto bill pay, they have different options for how frequently they want their card to be charged. There are typically two standard methods. One would be for your budget customers, where they would enroll to pay the same amount every month or for a specified period of time, typically 12 months. The other is for customers who are not on a budget, where the options there would typically be to let the customer either pay their balance in full on a given date every month, or pay their amount due whenever their amount is due. With that option, rather with the with the non-budget customer option, we also have the ability to let the customer specify a maximum charge if they want to. So, and if you want to enable that function. So, for example, a customer might set up to pay whatever the amount is due on the 5th day of every month, up to a maximum charge of $2,000 or $5,000 or whatever they want to specify. Those are all configurable options that we would help you set up at the time you set up the auto bill pay process. There's a standard system form that's built into the system for customer feedback. This is just a way to let the customers click on a link that would be inside the menu items in the portal and give you guys feedback. This again would get sent to by email to an email address you would designate, and it would get logged in a system log. So we'll talk briefly about online price protection and hedging. You guys saw the page previously where we looked at the contracts, which are administered through the admin portal. So typical contracts that you might set up would be a fixed price, maybe a pre-buy, and capped programs. So you can set up those prices within, you can set up those contracts within Destwin. Customers have the ability to enroll online. As we talked about when we were looking at that page, a PDF document can get sent to the customer for them to sign it and return to you, or if you do the online method where the customer is either doing it themselves or you've sent them a link to approve it, they just finish that process themselves online and click on a link that says I agree to these terms and conditions, and that constitutes an electronic signature and is how they can approve the contract. Indexed pricing is something we think is very important, and what index pricing does is we get data from a feed from CME that gives us pricing out over 16 months, I think, 12, at least 12, and then you can set your prices based on that data feed and expected future prices from the CME, and you can price your contracts such that so that you're pricing for the fuel price over the life of the contract. Elimination of commitment delay risk. If you can make this process of getting customers to enroll in contracts, if the faster you can make that happen, the less time you have that proposal to your customer sitting out there where the price can change, the better. So you want it, if the customer's booking the contract themselves, there is no delay risk whatsoever. If you postal mail that contract to a customer, between the time you've made that paper contract at that point and the time they return it to you, during that time, during those number of days that proposal is outstanding, the price of fuel can change. So you want to try to eliminate that as much as possible. So the online method helps reduce that time that a contract can be outstanding. Process automation, again, following up on some of the themes we talked about earlier, if you can get your customer to do this themselves, you've saved some time. If that contract comes into Destwin and then can get immediately transferred to your back-end system without the need for you to enter it into the back-end system, again, you've saved some time and you've automated your general process. Hedging and supply management, that data again that we get from our contracts is automatically coming into the system. It's being aggregated with all the other customer contracts that customers are entering, as well as if you've got contracts that you have put into your back-end system, we can get that data too. So we've got all your contract data all in one place, so you can make better hedging decisions and supply decisions. We do have some tools in some of our advanced risk management systems that allow you to guys actually make purchases directly for paper hedges. And built within ARM is a very thorough and extensive risk management system. We looked at this screen a little bit earlier. This is the same screen in a little bit more detail. So if you set up a smart cap program in your admin pages, this would be the contract process. It's a step-by-step process in Destwin. The first step gets you to the contract screen where you would enter your gallons. The price is being determined by some means that we would work with you to set up. You can have fees associated, which you would have with typically with a cap price program. The Destwin online contracting system is a step-by-step process. So you can't get to the next step until you've completed the prior step. You can have service plans as part of the contract if you want to. You can have different payment options, including budgets or pay-as-you-go type options. We collect an email address for the contract, and this is the email that we would send the contract to. And in addition, we can send out a notification when the contract's expiring to this email address that's entered on the contract. Contracts can expire on date or gallons, and you can set thresholds for either one of those. For example, 60 days in advance of the contract expiration date, or 80% usage of the contract. Whichever one of those two events would occur first would trigger an automatic email to that customer to let them know that they're eligible then to enroll in another program. These are the different options in CSR mode that you can have. So you could do the Yes Online option, which would send the email to the customer to allow them to approve it online. Yes with Signature would be the version where you're going to get a PDF file and either email that to the customer for them to sign and return to you, or print and postal mail. If you actually do telephonic contracts, that's an option as well. So if you choose no, because this question is asking, is this a telephonic contract that the customer will have to approve later? No means that it's a telephonic contract that the customer is actually approving right now. When contracts are generated, they get written to the contract log. There's so this is a screen from the admin pages of the portal where you can see all the contracts that have come in and manage them. Here's a screenshot of advanced risk management, one of the advanced risk management screens. You can see it's aggregating all your contract data, showing the number of months and what the deliveries, what deliveries you expect to make on those contracts. It's projecting those deliveries over the life of the contract of your program season. And it's also showing any purchases that you might have entered. So it's a pretty robust screen. Takes a little bit of time to get used to the risk management or to get trained on using the risk management system, but it's a very robust tool that a lot of people use. It's another risk management screen. Sorry, I know we're running out of time a little bit, so I'm trying to go through these a little quickly. One of the things you can do in risk management is it presents a graphical presentation of your position at any time. And what this graph is showing is at the center of the graph is a zero price change. And it shows to the right what would happen if the price of oil or fuel increased, and to the left what happens to the price of if the price of fuel decreases. The red line is the target line. Ideally, if the price of fuel doesn't change, or ideally as the price of fuel changes, your profit margin would stay the same if you've hedged your position properly. And you can run different scenarios based on different purchases that you might make that show what would happen under different pricing, different purchase scenarios. We're getting into the data profiling piece here. Again, we talked about this earlier. These are marketing messages that can be targeted to specific groups based on characteristics that we get from the back-end system. This is a screen of the admin pages that show the marketing console, the place where you would actually manage, create, and insert your different marketing messages, the targeted messages that you want to show to customers. And here's an example of the edit screen where you would go in and actually create a message. It's a HTML editing tool, so you can type content directly in, and you can view the HTML code if you're familiar with that. If you have a third-party website developer, they could also assist you with the creation of messages, or we can as well. Some marketing messages can be CSR only messages. So if you want to have prompts for your CSRs about certain accounts and the characteristics associated with those accounts, you can use the CSR slots or messages, and those messages will show up in the portal as well as in a box up here, so that your CSRs can see that certain accounts have certain characteristics if a customer happens to call and they're on the phone with them. You can have different, this is where you, in the marketing messages tools, where you can have different groups of customers. So common traits that are common amongst customers can be grouped for appropriate marketing messages. Automatic delivery customers might get one message, where customers who are not on automatic delivery would get another. By default, if you have an automatic delivery group, you also have a non-automatic delivery group, because that's simply everybody who's left over, who's not a part of the automatic delivery group. Same is true for any of these groups. This is showing just another screenshot from the marketing dashboard where you create and insert your messages. In this screen, we're seeing that the automatic delivery group has 6,676 members. So there's 6,676 accounts in this particular database, customers who are on automatic delivery. When you're inserting a message, you can pick the group that's going to get that message. Built into the system is we do have some analytics, which we are building on even more, because so we can keep track of what customers are visiting, what pages. We also keep track now of what devices people are using to access your portal, which is a very interesting thing. And as we go on, it'll be interesting to see how many people, more and more people, use phones as opposed to computers. You can actually see that information if you're up on version 3.3 of Destwin. We also intend to build in some tools that allow you to keep better track of your marketing email campaigns. Inside the system, in the coupon, if you are using coupons, we'll be able to keep track of what coupons have been used, so that you can do some analysis of how effective your marketing campaigns with coupons are. Business intelligence tracking, financial P&L. We don't, to tell you, this would be part of the risk management system inside ARM. There is a screen where you can actually see, not only you can see the purchases view, the supply side view, as well as a financial view. This is an example of the analytics screen I was mentioned. So we actually are keeping track of how many accounts, not only what pages people are visiting, but how many accounts are visiting the site by what type of device, which is very interesting. So far, we've seen anywhere between 15 and 25% of people using phones. So we made it to the end. Had to go through those last slides fairly quickly. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming, and now we'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Robert. We did have a few come in, and if you do have questions, again, feature and go to webinar. First question. can you just talk about security in regards to, not just the Deswin platform, but really any, integrating with any other Deswin or any other portal? If there's any, security issues that go beyond, the normal security threats that are out there,
Well,
or data threats, I should say.
Sure, that's a great question. And so security has become the forefront of web portals and online systems in general over the past few years in particular. Many of you are probably familiar with PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. Anybody who has an online system and a merchant account is required to comply with PCI DSS. PCI DSS sets the standard for credit card processing, and that became prevalent years ago because mostly, the card industry themselves are the ones who had to pay for a lot of the costs of actual fraud. So they established these standards and they put the onus on the merchant to comply. So there's many things that we do as part of at the hosting facility itself to ensure that your data is secure and that we are in compliance with PCI DSS standards. PCI DSS standards are it's up to the merchant to actually comply. There are certain things that Deswin can assist you guys with in terms of making sure that you're in compliance with PCI DSS. One of the most important things that's come about recently is the gateways. So when we process payments go from the portal to the gateway, and then from the gateway to the merchant account, and then the merchant account puts the money in your bank. So gateways have developed techniques over the past few years in particular that make it easier for us, the service provider, to not ever save or touch credit card sensitive information. And what that does is it reduces the overall PCI DSS footprint both for us as well as for you, the merchant. And so they've made it a little easier for us to comply with PCI DSS standards. Another thing that's happened in the past few years is, and you guys, some of you may have seen this, there's been a lot more spam, and spam can be malicious. Spam can get into your systems and infiltrate them and cause serious problems. So spam filtering has become much more popular and much more strict. So there are things we've done and can do to reduce the likelihood that internal system emails that have been generated from Deswin will get trapped in your spam filters. If any of you need any help with any of that stuff, just contact us after this session, and we could talk about it in more detail.
Very good. Next question we got, and again, not just relating to Deswin, but can you talk about a scenario where a current backend software doesn't interface or integrate with an online portal, and what that process looks like in regards to connecting it?
Sure. So there has to be, a lot of backend systems today have developed an API, application program interface. And what that is a specification or a protocol for how to connect to them and interchange data with them. Some of the more popular systems today have been working on things like that. So it makes it easier for integrators like us to work with them and get data. Other backend systems, maybe if they don't have an API, we and other people like us can generate files. If that backend supplier is willing to work with us, we can go in there and extract certain data or write an interface to do what essentially the API would do if they had an API. So we can generate files that would be transferred on a batch basis. So, for example, we might be able to, we would write some scripts to pull the data out of their system for all their account information. And account information might include the account number, address, name, simple basic information like that. And then we would take that, put it into a file called a flat file. So it would be a delimited file. All the fields would be separated by a comma or a tab, whatever the delimiter file might be. And then that just generates this large data file, which can be then sent over the internet to a hosting facility, and that's how we would get the data. Now there are security, to tie back to the other question, there would be those files are transferred via a secure method, and the firewall at the hosting facility needs to be opened so that to allow data from that particular source to pass through. So those are the types of things that occur in terms of a security standpoint when we transfer data files back and forth between systems.
Very, very good. Thank you. Next one's a little more Deswin specific, but I think you can probably answer it generally as well. Is there a feature in Deswin where you could schedule a service call or an annual tune-up? Like for example, next Monday at 9 a.m. Does that feature exist?
Yes, we didn't really talk about the scheduling tools that are available within Deswin. There's a couple ways to do scheduling within Deswin, and it is a little dependent on the back end system. With ad systems, E3 for example, they have a well-defined API and called Smart Connect, and we can actually pass that type of data back and forth directly with them. Cargus has a similar real-time API that they've recently introduced, which we're working with, and we hope to be able to introduce that functionality within a Cargus system at some point in the future. So in that case, we are actually going into the back-end system, finding out the available time slots that a customer might be able to schedule an appointment, allowing the customer to book that information. That information gets presented to the customer. These are the slots that are available. This is the one I picked. That data then gets sent back to the back-end system, and that appointment gets scheduled. So that's one way to do it. There's an actual scheduling tool that's built within Deswin where you can set up a whole bunch of stuff in order to be able to schedule those appointments the same way. There's a bit of work involved in doing that. You have to set up your resources. You have to set up the services that those resources can provide, and you have to set up their availability. And if you do all those things, you can actually schedule appointments through the Deswin scheduler. Another way you could do it is with a more simple form that just places a form on the website that is not as smart. It's not integrated with either the back-end system or the Deswin scheduler. So it is not aware of what appointment times are actually available because it's not integrated in the same way. But it could be just a simple form that lets the customer fill in their information. Since we know who they are, they don't have to go through the process of putting in their name and account number, things like that. We already know that. But a simple form can be added to the portal where they could just say, hey, I want to do an appointment on this date, and they would send that in, and then somebody, a CSR, would have to process that application and get back to the customer.
Very good. Do you have clients that are essentially having more customers book appointments online at this point than actually having to call them, as in, well, in terms of getting on the phone in general, whether it's the company calling the customer or the customer calling the company? Has that exceeded that point yet, in other words?
For the people who are actually using the scheduler, I think they're certainly probably seeing a lot of traction for that particular tool. Because scheduling is complicated in terms of managing it from your guys' perspective. We have not seen a lot of people add online scheduling. And I think the reason for that is that if you don't have, it's a lot easier to have a single source for managing your scheduling. If you use the Destwin scheduler, you have to allocate resources that then can't be scheduled in the back-end system, because otherwise you run the risk of double booking people. So with the advent of the AP, with the introduction really of the API that allows us to see the technicians and see directly access that information in the back-end system, I expect we'll see a lot an increase in people actually using the online scheduling tool. So to directly answer the question, I'd say that we haven't really seen a lot. We do have some customers who use the scheduling tools in Destwin, but not as much as we would like, and the limiting factor being the ability to get that data from the back-end system interactively. So now that we have that functionality, I do expect that to be one of the things that people will take more advantage of going forward.
Very good. Makes sense. Last question, and we'll wrap up with this. In the risk and again, this is another Destwin specific question. In the risk management portion, is there the ability to create your own winter seasonal curve in the setup?
Yes, you have the ability to set up your own heat curves, and you can have multiple heat curves, different heat curves for different products. That functionality exists.
Okay. Very good. Robert, I appreciate your time. Thank you everyone that got on this morning. That's still on here. Our next webinar will be June 5th at 9 a.m. We hope to see you on that. And again, thank you everyone for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.